Thank you, Vice Chair House. I'll take roll call. See, Chair Grambine is absent. Vice Chair House.
Here.
Commissioner Butler.
Here.
Commissioner Jordan.
Here.
Commissioner Drury is absent. Commissioner Ensberg.
Here.
Commissioner Lundvik.
Present.
And then Commissioner McClure and Uli are absent. We do have a quorum.
Great. First item on the business is public comment for anything that is not on our agenda today.
Pardon my interruption before we open public comment. Can you please make sure your mics are on, Vice Chair House? Thank
Sorry
you.
about that. Should I
right.
repeat that?
No, it's quite all right. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, for public comment, I do have one speaker slip. If there's anyone else in the audience who would like to speak on general business, that's items not on today's agenda, please fill out a speaker slip and turn it over to me. With that, we'll go ahead and start with Rick Clausen. Mr. Clausen, please go up to the podium, make sure the mic is on, and you have 2 minutes to speak.
Yeah,
You've dressed
I remember
for
that
the
from
occasion
the last
today.
time that I was here. What did you say, sir?
You've dressed for the occasion today.
There is an occasion. Later today, I'll be speaking at the Parks and Recreation Commission meeting, urging them to do better for the landmark Doremus pine trees. They already have my extended written comments, and I'll speak to them about something new. I've given a lot of thought to the process by which we're here, where the determination of a historic landmark permanence will be decided by a commission whose purview not clearly is related to either history or to landmarks. A stark difference between your commission and theirs is they have a city department of Parks and Recreation where much of their executive power resides. The HLC, by comparison, often must rely on Blanche Dubois' fickle kindness of strangers to get things done. I'm reminded of a suggestion made by one of your colleagues that there should be a city department of historic preservation. Now, despite the contributions of minor players like the mountains and the ocean and temperate climate and fertile soil, much of the continuing popularity of Santa Barbara for residents and commerce derives from our historic built environment. I practiced for over 2 decades at St. John's Regional Medical Center, where other employees and patients routinely thought Santa Barbara's streets were paved with gold. Ventura County coastal cities like Oxnard and Ventura have mountains and ocean beaches similar to ours. Still, Angelinos and others motor right through those closer cities to come to Santa Barbara. Our historic built environment deserves better local recognition and enforcement for the all-important but fragile resource that it is. I'm happy to put into the public record that there is citizen support for the establishment of a Department of Historic Preservation, advised by the HLC and reporting to the city manager. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chair,
Commissioner Jordan.
I know it's not on the agenda, so I don't want to discuss it, but I simply want to acknowledge that we received a very detailed, thoughtful study of the situation involving pine trees. And because of so much effort went into it, I simply want to acknowledge that publicly.
Thank you for saying so. Okay, is there any other comment?
Thank you, Vice Chair House. I do not have any more speaker slips, and we do not have any virtual participants at this time. Just for the record, we did receive written correspondence from Carol Kalau, and that was 2 submissions from her, which was distributed to the commission prior to the meeting. Back to you.
Thank you. I will close public comment, and we'll move on to item B of general business, approval of the minutes of the Historic Landmarks Commission meeting of October 9th, 2024.
So moved. I'll second that.
Motion by Butler, second by Lundvik. Are there any comments or corrections?
Vice Chair House, I have a question. I was not at the last meeting, sorry. So I don't know if we have quorum to be able to, I would be recusing myself from that.
That is an excellent point. So we will have to continue the approval of these minutes to the next hearing.
Mr. Chair, if I may. Under, catch me if I'm wrong on this, and I'm sure the attorney is watching. Under Robert's Rules of Order, if I recall, a person can excuse themselves from voting on an issue, but not leave the room, and they're still part of the quorum. I mean, this, Commissioner Ensberg could be here. She would identify the fact she's not going to vote on that because she wasn't here, but she is here to make a quorum. And I believe that, under Robert's Rules of Orders, is an appropriate action.
Pardon my
I don't-
interruption before we carry on. Mr. Lundvik, can you just please make sure you're talking to the microphone? Sorry, thank you. I have City TV calling.
I would have to, and our Ms. Kokinda is out today, so I don't have her here to defer to. So I think it would be safest to continue the minutes to the next hearing for approval, and then I can find more information about that and confirm if that's correct.
Can we instead table this until later in the meeting if we do get some advice on it?
I believe so. I think we could table this.
I would, I
Item
think that's
for
a
right now.
wise thing to do.
Okay.
If
Okay.
if the attorney is watching,
Yeah, okay, so we will table approval of the minutes of October 9th
Okay,
until
thank
later in the meeting.
Perfect.
Okay, moving on to item C, approval of the minutes of the Historic Landmarks Commission consent meeting of October 9th, 2024.
I'd move approval.
Okay, motion by Lenvick, second by
Second.
Butler. Are there any comments on that or
I
questions?
believe we should table that as well.
I guess the same thing applies.
I don't think the same applies because we, it doesn't matter if you attended that hearing because
Right.
we only have the two consent reviewers.
Yeah,
I will follow up, but I think we can vote on this for now.
Thank you.
okay, so call for a vote on that, please.
Thank you, Vice Chair House. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Jordan,
Yes,
Commissioner Ensberg,
Abstain.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lundvik,
Yes.
and Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg, you don't need to abstain from voting on this item because you didn't attend you don't need to have attended the consent hearing to vote on the ratification of the minutes. It's just the approval of the minutes.
You want to change your vote to a yes or leave it as it is?
If it's not a problem, I'll just leave it as it is. If,
Because then we wouldn't have.
We don't have a quorum.
Yeah, we don't have a quorum for approval if you abstain.
okay, I'll just risk my life and say yes.
And I'll get some clarification on this.
Thank
so-
you.
So
We
dramatic.
won't hold you to it if I'm mistaken.
Motion passes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Moving on to item D, ratification of action taken on the consent calendar of today, October 23rd. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item A was 1770 Prospect Ave, which was postponed indefinitely due to the applicant's absence. And item B was 701 Chapala Street, which received approval of review after final with the condition that the brick veneer be the Normandy cream antique. And that is
Thank
all.
you. Is there a motion to ratify that?
So moved.
Butler,
I'll second that.
Lenvick? Call for a vote, please.
Thank you, Vice Chair House. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lundvik,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
yes.
and Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank
And we
you.
were done with consent calendar in 13 minutes today.
We're ahead of ourselves, huh?
Yeah. Okay, so moving on to announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals. Staff, do you have?
Yes, we have a few announcements from staff today. First is that I just wanted to clarify some information I provided to the commission earlier this year that was, it was some misinformation. There was some question over whether or not supports for solar equipment are exempt from design review. The solar equipment itself is, of course, exempt from design review, and earlier this year I told you that the supporting structures are still subject to design review, but I want to make the clarification that if the structure is solely supporting the photovoltaic equipment, then it is also exempt from design review. So I just wanted to make that clarification, and then we've got a couple announcements from Ms. Hernandez.
So I emailed you all yesterday about the scoping hearing for the Los Patos underpass. Just wanted to let you know that's where public can come and give all their concerns about the demolition of the Los Patos underpass. If you read the minutes, there was a disagreement amongst experts. So it's in an EIR for the demolition, and that's the first step in an EIR. There'll be a 45-day public comment period before it goes to the next step. And yesterday, the council adopted and approved all the Mills Act exceptions that needed to go to council. And next week, the council will be voting to accept the $40,000 grant from the state for the San Roque survey that we recently received. And once they approve that, we can get rolling on that. And just as we, a few years ago, adopted the template for plaques for historic landmarks and structures of merit, and the City Hall just installed theirs because they're officially 100 years old. And they did that to commemorate their 100th year anniversary. So we're starting to see them in more and more spots around town. And that is all I have. Thanks.
Thank you for that report. Any questions? Any other announcements? I guess not, then we'll move on to item.
Mr. Chair, if I might, I
Commissioner
want to go
Landvik.
back to the comment that staff made regarding solar panels on a structure. If that structure is being used as a decorative element in a rooftop deck, that would be its primary use, I would assume. And the fact that panels are on there does not exempt it from review. Is that correct?
That's a difficult distinction for me to articulate right now, because I don't think I totally understand how the state law is applied to this, which is how we got some misinformation. So if it's, I think if you're talking about if there's a trellis, is the trellis a decorative element, even though it has solar on it, and would it still be subject to design review? Or because if someone asserted that the trellis was only there to support the photovoltaic, would that make it exempt? I don't understand that distinction. I will reach out and get some clarification on that.
I think it's important to have this very clear, because trellis structures are often on a roof.
Yes.
They're protecting a table or benches or whatever, adding to the ambiance of the roof, and they put solar panels on there. We've got to be real careful that we identify what the use is. Now, if the roof wasn't being used and it was just a structure up there, yeah, I can understand that, but I think we ought to make sure of this.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to subcommittee reports. Are there any subcommittee reports?
Vice Chair
Commissioner Ansberg.
House, I just wanted to report about the outdoor dining guidelines that we've been working on. We got a email from Sarah Clark from the city wanting to help with that and asking us to see if we can move that forward. So I have sent her an email asking for her to try to help us set up a Zoom meeting to for our little group of Chair Grumbine and Commissioner McClure and myself to meet with her and kind of see if we can figure out the fastest, most efficient steps forward to get that implemented. And so that's what has happened on that front.
Thank you for that report. Any other subcommittee reports? If not, then we'll move on to the first item on our agenda. Item 1 is an archaeology report for 2201 Laguna Street. Greetings. So make sure your mic is on.
There, it's green.
So name
Mr.
for the
Chair,
record and then your
Fred
presentation,
Sweeney.
please.
And to my right from our staff is our project architect, Eva Podroski. I'm here today to sub for Mr. Hoover, who would have been here but contacted me earlier this morning that his wife had an emergency. He had to take her to emergency and wasn't able to make it down from San Luis Obispo to address this issue. So I guess I turn this back over to Ms. Hernandez, how this works.
Just a brief staff announcement for this item. So there's nothing to display for this first item because the archaeological resources reports are confidential. So I believe Mr. Sweeney has a statement from the report preparer that he can read to you, and then you can ask him any questions, and then you can either vote to approve the report, approve or deny the report, or if you feel like you have more questions for the report preparer, you would need to continue it in his absence. But I believe the statements from Mr. Sweeney will qualify as a presentation for this.
Thank you. This will take probably about 6 or 7 minutes to read. I do have copies, if it's okay, of that statement that I sent electronically to staff this morning, if you all need to see it. Anyway, I'm going to just read, and forgive me for taking the time to do so. So it is a great honor for me to wrap up a career in the archaeological of Hispanic California with this report on the proposal to construct an ADA and a building compliance access ramp to the main doors of Mission Santa Barbara. I first began my career as an undergraduate student excavating at Mission La Purísima. I've spent 40 years teaching archaeological field school at Mission San Antonio with the international group of students conditions much more pleasant than those at Santa Barbara. I've also worked at Mission San Miguel and Mission Santa Ynez, El Presidio de Santa Barbara, and other projects. Each mission has a different history, personalities, etc. This project is particularly appropriate for me as it deals with ADA project, an issue that I have personally become much more aware of in the last year of life, this last year of life. Mission Santa Barbara, founded in 1786, is arguably the most complex mission site in California, having never been abandoned by the Franciscans since its founding. Only one other mission shares this status. It is recognized as a National Historic Landmark, the highest designation that our nation can bestow on a historic site, and it contains the most complex archaeological and architectural record of any similar sites in the state. It was located in the center of the Chumash territory, and its founding was always the highest priority to the Spanish government. It served the densest indigenous population with the most complex and distinctive culture within the state. Villages, some over 1,000 people, lived around the Goleta Slough in Carpinteria, and in a location near the zoo in Santa Barbara, Spanish missions were sited with reference to the native population centers, though not actually located in them. They were placed with care at sites with many supporting resources: agricultural land, grazing land, timber and stone sources, and water. However, even with the best of planning, missions or their churches needed to be moved to adjust local problems of earthquakes, floods, and insects. The Church of Mission Santa Clara was moved 5 times, I believe, as record in the sites in California. With experience, the Franciscans got a better locating missions with the time. The Chumash were one of the most friendly and powerful groups in the Aboriginal California, requiring cautious approach to missionization. A policy of gradualism was practiced. The earliest Chumash missions were located on the fringes of tribal territory. San Luis Obispo, 1772, and San Buenaventura in 1782. A presidio was founded in 1782 and the last 4 in the state. To secure a major port for Father Serra had planned a mission to be founded in Santa Barbara in conjunction with the presidio. Permission to do this was not received until 1786, after Sierra had walked to Mexico City and later died before its founding. Mission Santa Barbara had 4 churches, and the plans of which are illustrated in Figure 3 or page 5 of the report. Original temporary jacal structure of wattle and daub with a thatched roof was built in 1787. This was soon replaced to a rapidly rising level of conversations by second church in 1789, built of adobe with a tile roof. A third church was needed in 1794 to accommodate even more larger congregation. It was also an adobe with roof construction and contained a portico constructed in 1811. This adobe building with the tile roof was destroyed in 1812 that afflicted many missions in Southern California. A fourth church of the 1820 was built around the ruins of the third church with the sandstone blocks, a tile roof, 6-foot thick walls, and massive buttresses in response to seismic activity. The front of the church contained 2 bell towers on either side of the entrance. At the east tower built in 1820 and a west tower built in 1831 to 1833. The west tower was torn down and rebuilt in 1953. The East Tower was restored in 1927 and rebuilt in 1953. The facade of the church is based on Plate X of the Vitruvius book, De Architectura, a recent 1st century AD Rome. The impressive iconic columns provide a spectacular backlit evening canvas for the Spanish dancers at the annual fiesta. In spite of a long period of growth and development in Mission Santa Barbara, it still processes many original historic resources preserved archaeologically. However, the site also accommodates hundreds of visitors each year and a large group of parishioners, many of whom require ADA access to the church. The proposed project is designed so that the ADA ramp is located in areas of previous disturbance in 1958 in which the soil was disturbed to depart about 20 feet hand made useless, figure 9, page 9. The ramp approaches the church from the Los Olivas Street, makes 3 turns, wrapping around the east tower and ends near the front door of the church, figure 11, page 11. 2 styles of steps were noted in this work, earlier steps of 1812 with beveled edges and later steps of 1870s with squared edges replaced by Father Roma, figure 10, page 10. The pavement of the portico itself has been raised up to 2 feet over the various years of renovation, requiring an addition of more steps and the expansion of the apron around the front of the portico. This project will simply add to a new layer of steps above the previous layers, adding to the archaeological record of a building at the site. I am grateful to Dr. Glasgow's favorable review of the report in agreement with the conclusions and recommendations, specifically that the construction should be monitored for isolated historic objects by an archaeological and Barbarino Chumash monitor during construction. It's very personally rewarding to work on the project team for this undertaking. Robert L. Hoover.
Thank you. Does that conclude your presentation?
That concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to public comment.
Thank you, Vice Chair House. I do not have any speaker slips for this item, but if there's anyone who'd like to speak on the archaeology report, please fill out a speaker slip and turn it into me. Turning to virtual public comment, if there's anyone who'd like to speak on this item who's participating on Zoom, please raise your hand and we can call on you. Not seeing any raised hands, and then we did not receive any written correspondence, so back to you.
Thank you. I'll close public comment, open it to questions from the commission. Any questions?
Mr. Vice Chair?
Commissioner Butler.
So since we can't see the report, right?
Yes.
Okay. I think the telling line is, and correct me please, in the next to last paragraph, the ADA ramp is located in areas of previous disturbance in 1958 in which the soil was disturbed to a depth of about 20 feet.
Correct.
So it seems to me it's safe to say that in 1958, that area was pretty much cleaned out and cleared out, correct?
Correct. And we also know that a big chunk was cleared out in 1953 when they had to reconstruct the entire 20 feet of the front of the mission. So there's huge footings. So they had to take out there is another whole set of steps under these steps.
Well, and then that's to that point, the
Yeah.
last sentence in that paragraph, the project will simply add a new layer of steps.
Right.
So really, we're not disturbing the soil per se, we're building on top of it.
Yeah. So the chances of us finding anything of significance are probably pretty low.
Great, thank you.
But, there'll be people out there to watch it.
Right. Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Okay. We need a motion to approve accept the report as submitted.
Motion to accept the report.
Second?
Okay, motion by Jordan, second by Ensberg. And all in favor? Roll call, please.
I'll go ahead and take a roll call vote. Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lundvik,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
and Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, you're going to remain here for your next presentation.
Yes. I
And this
assume we're
is,
within the
item-
timeframe.
Item 2 on the agenda, also 2201 Laguna Street, designated a city, state, and national landmark. The mission was constructed in 1786, 1815, and 1925 by Father Antonio Ripoll and Jose Antonio Ramirez in the Spanish colonial style. Proposal to construct an ADA and building code compliant access ramp to the main doors. Project includes a new tile platform and new steps atop the existing historic steps, landscaping, ADA accessway, and 1 ADA parking space. No final appealable action will take place at this meeting. Project compatibility findings and minor alteration findings will be required for project design approval. and it was last reviewed on December 20th of 2023. So, your presentation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You get to see it this time.
Okay. Fred Sweeney is the project designer. Eva Podolsky, who is our project architect from 1906. Also in the audience is Father Dan Lackey, the parish priest that heads our parish, and Jim Balsitas, who is the facilities director for the mission. What I want to share with you, first of all, thank you, Ms. Ensberg, because I know your family is in town and you took the time to come to this meeting to get a quorum. Thank you so much. And I have to apologize for even having this here today because we didn't quite understand the process. Apparently, because we're trying to reduce the cost of this thing by eliminating the 3 parking spaces that you reviewed the last time that required a considerable amount of work at the bottom of the monumental historic steps, it turns out we've had 2 reputable contractors, one of which ultimately will probably be the contractor, do cost estimates, and those came in with well over $1 million to do this ramp. So to try to get the cost down, we think we can pull off $300,000 from that number by eliminating the need for the desire for the parish to have 3 spaces in front of the arcade and just go to 1 space. And we're doing that. I'm going to pass this out. We're doing this under the building code law that actually doesn't even require us to provide a parking space for this 1 door and 1 ramp. And we pointed that out in our completeness letter when this project was first submitted to the Transportation Department. Unfortunately, I'm not sure they clearly understand how this lot is used. And we were told yesterday that now the mission's going to have to pay another $400+ to go back and get it reviewed because we've taken 3 spaces out and left 1, which we don't even need to have. But anyway, so we're going to go through that process. So we're only allowed today to be here just to bring you up to date. So to reduce the, if we can go to the site plan that shows what we're taking out. Forgot what drawing. Yeah, right there. Go back to that one. Let's go back. Okay. So, sorry. So what we did is we said, okay, let's try to take out the 3 parking spaces. That would be, wonderful to have, but they're going to get very expensive because you can see how much soil has to be moved around to redo the elevations. And as you know from our last review, then getting a wheelchair around the bottom of the historic steps, around to the ramp, et cetera, required a whole bunch of stuff. And including, which you weren't aware of once we had you look at concept, is the amount of lighting that has to be put in from those parking spaces to the ramp got really complicated, and all of a sudden we were having to look at a vertical 16-foot high light standard and relighting on the top of the, so forth and so on. Anyway, so we asked the contractors, please go back and look and just say, we're taking all that out and we're just going to do the 1 parking space, okay, right at the bottom of the ramp. Even though we're not required, it still makes sense to do that because we can do a minimal amount of surface change. You'll see there's a little bit of a curb wall at the south end of that parking space just because we want to try to avoid having to tear up the rest of the parking lot. At any rate, that will reduce the amount of lighting. We're going to get by with a couple of light standards, which we have on these drawings because we were anticipating for final approval, but we have those. They're very simple, black fixtures. I think there's just 1. We may need 2. And then we've got lighting up the ramp, as we've always had. And then we're going to have to re-lamp the 2 decorative lanterns that are on each side of the main doors. We can do that just as I did for the Santa Barbara Airport huge lobby chandelier that was gifted from the county of Santa Barbara. We had to re-lamp that one too. So there's a way to do this. And we're also then installing little floor level lights in between the columns right up against the wall to get the equivalent of light on that surface. So they'll be basically, hopefully not seen, they're fairly low. The other thing we did is Jim Balsitas, who's the facility director at the mission, discovered that the original stone for the bottom of the towers, and you remember that the top of the towers are faw painted, but the bottom towers do have a veneer stone that was put over the concrete when it was rebuilt in 1952-53. And Jim discovered that it came from a quarry at the top of Tepesquay Canyon in Santa Barbara County. Unfortunately, because of 2 years ago when we had those big rainstorms, the road to that quarry has been destroyed. And it actually belongs to the National Forest Service. So we got a hold of Congressman Carbajal's office and talked with their staff. And they discovered that, yes, the National Forest would like to repair the road, but there apparently is some easement problem across some property lines, so we don't know when that will be resolved. When we asked the contractors to do the original cost estimate, we said, well, if you've got to fly them out by helicopter, let's put it in the cost. Well, we don't think that's going to happen. In fact, in talking to the owners of the quarry, we're not even sure there's a place to land a helicopter up there to get them out. So what we may have to do is try to duplicate as best we can with stone that we can find to make, again, the point of all of this project is to make that handicap ramp wall disappear into the towers. So we're going to do our best to do that. We just may not be able to pay the price to get the stones from that Sisquoc quarry out of there. So those were the two big components that allowed us to reduce that by $300,000. Now, unfortunately, the process now requires us to come back to you again for final and project design approval. There's apparently another $400 fee to have transportation look at this again. I'm not sure whether they realize that we already answered that in the first go-around, and that's why I passed out the law, the building code law, that allows us not to even have a parking space. But anyway, that just brings you up to date, and sorry we had to take your time today to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. If that concludes your presentation, we'll
Yes.
open it to public comment.
Thank you, Vice Chair House. So if there's anyone in the room who'd like to speak on this item, please fill out a speaker slip and turn it over to me. Not seeing any movement on that, and turning to Zoom. If there's anyone participating virtually who'd like to speak on this item, please raise your hand on Zoom and then we'll call on you. Not seeing any raised hands, and we did not receive any written correspondence, so back to the commission.
Thank you. I'll close public comment, open it to questions from the commission. Anybody have a question? Anybody have a comment? Commissioner Ansberg.
Yeah, I have a question. So on this, well, to the parking, I guess we don't really have anything to offer about that, or can we talk about it at all?
Only to the extent of aesthetics, I would imagine.
Yes, through the chair to the rest of the commission. Yeah, the HLC's purview is only over the aesthetics of the project, so you don't really need to make any, or shouldn't make any comments about parking. And just as a clarification, this project was deemed conditionally complete, and then the project was revised to reduce the parking spaces and change the parking location. This isn't an issue for HLC. This is just that it needs further review by staff behind the scenes to make sure that, you know, the parking meets our ordinance and that turnaround is acceptable for transportation. So once it's reviewed and deemed complete again, we'll get it back here for project design approval.
Thank you. It does seem to be an aesthetic issue, though, you know, having these parking right in front there. And so I don't know if we can just make a comment at all about it and say, I guess I'm not completely clear about this. It's, you know, installing ramps, so.
Well, no, basically the exception is because we're only dealing with one door and we're only installing one ramp. That's why the ramp is one of the conditions for the exception. We're not required to do a parking space. Now, I can tell you when we were trying to do the 3 parking spaces, the one thing aesthetically that I was concerned about the parking in front of the arcade was the requirement to have those very high blue parking things in front of each space. And we actually made an appointment and visited with the chief building official for the city of Santa Barbara. The building official indicated that she was not able to make a finding, which she does have the authority to waiver anything with regards to the California Historic Building Code, which is the document we were using to request that waiver of having to put those signs that high. We proposed shorter signs and then made of wood, so they were more akin to the language, the architectural language of the mission, and she felt that she wasn't able to make that call. So in this case, there will be that high sign, kind of right where, if I had a drawing, I'd point to it, yeah, right there. Thank you, Ava. There will be a high sign, the standard. We're going to see if they're going to allow us to make it of wood versus the galvanized pole and the blue sign. I'm not sure who knows whether we'll get that approval or not, but that would be our effort. So to address Ms. Ginsburg's concern, aesthetically, this is blue paint on the paving, which will eliminate several spaces for the Ay-Madanati Festival because they won't get the paint there. But there is that little 6-inch high curb at the bottom. That was just an effort to reduce the cost of having to grade further down into the lot. If for some reason transportation decided that we had to have more than this one space for whatever reason, then there would be even more maneuvering against that wall, that little low wall that parallels Las Olivas Street.
If I could just continue. So this being probably our most important historic building in Santa Barbara, all of these objects are distractions from this beautiful building. So I do find them to be problematic if these aren't required. So I understand, there has to be exceptions to things like this, I would think. I also am, there's this lighting, all these other layers of things that are having to be brought in that I think all contribute to eroding from this historic structure. So those are concerns that I have about those things. And I also I know that we all kind of get into our silos and we're looking at these just very narrow things. And so I can understand how others are looking at their particular parts, transportation, ADA, they're looking at those and they have very specific rules that they have to follow. But as architects and designers, we know that we have to look at the global, and we have to look at all of the elements that contribute to this, the delight part of the architecture, the firmness, the commodity, and the delight. So we have to ensure that that keeps coming through. So I would like, I'm saddened by the fact that they have to now go back again and pay another $400, which is, it's money that could be contributing towards other things. So I'm unhappy to hear about that and that is being required. And I would urge that we all sort of step back and look at the big picture and how really essential or important this is, because I hate to see them having to go back and forth and paying $400 every time to get it reviewed. So anyway, thank you for letting me say that.
Mr.
Thank
Vice
you for
Chair.
those comments. Let me ask a question. First, we didn't really have much of a presentation about the lighting. Could you show us a cut sheet for those
Yeah, that's what
fixtures?
she was trying to get to.
Okay.
One thing I do want to show you, and I don't have it on a computer, and I know that we're allowed to actually share things with you if it's not pre-done because of the process. Yeah. Anyway, this is the decorative fixture that's on either side of the doors.
Okay.
We looked into the possibility of having to make new ones or find others that look old, and they really didn't, in my mind, satisfy the historic nature of this building.
What's the
So-
shortcoming of the existing
So,
fixture that you
so
need to
we
solve?
want to leave them there. we may need to take them down to re-glass them. And then, as I said, what I did at the airport is there is a group here that's able to do this. They retrofitted the electrical mechanisms to put in the new lighting requirements under the code. So that's what we'll do to these two fixtures. That's probably going to be just as expensive as trying to go and find somebody to make one, but at least we keep the fixtures, we put them back exactly where they were, and then at that point, we can tell you the lighting, color, et cetera, because I know that's a concern to all
I
of
mean,
us.
basically
What's the code issue?
The code issues, you have to
light
have,
levels on the ground.
yeah, you have to have 1
Accessibility.
foot candlelight on the ground. That was what that other diagram was.
Yeah.
And so to meet that, we can use a combination of the two existing fixtures to get the lighting better. And then the little lighting fixtures that are S4, right, that one right there. Those are going to be in the floor of that new raised platform. So can we go to the plan? We can show them where those will be located. So they're about 3.5 inches high from the surface of the saltillo tile. That black part is what's in the ground
Right.
or in the foundation. Let's go back, we can show them location. So it was the thing that we looked at, what can we get that can be unobtrusive as at all possible and still get the light level that we need just in front of the main face of the mission. The ramp itself will have aisle lights, step lights already in the new wall, so that's pretty straightforward. So, yeah, so they're going to go right between the columns, if you can point to that. Yeah, right, one there, and there'll be 4 of them. One there, whoops. Go to
And they're in the
right, go to
paving
right.
surface.
Yeah, they're going to be right in the paving system. 1, 2, 3, and 4. They'll be right in there as close
So
as we can get
basically,
them.
they're lighting up the wall in order to reflect back
No,
on
no,
it.
no, they're lighting the ground.
Oh, okay.
So they're that high, they're 3.5 inches high, and then they'll spill the light at the top of the
So they're
tile.
facing away from the wall.
Exactly, yeah, we're
So
not trying to light
If
the
you were
wall.
standing below, would you have this glare in your
No,
face?
no, 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 no. Yeah, so that's what we're working on.
But how are those not glary? I mean, I was
They're not going to be glary because there's a model that also we can add a little lens thing on it, to keep it down. So that's the point, because we don't want to relight the whole front of the mission. That's a whole other project, so it's just. what
But in
can we do?
addition to doing that, you need more light out of these, out of this wall
Yeah,
fixture.
yeah.
And so how is that being accomplished? Are you putting something up in the hood of that to aim
No, no,
down,
no, no,
or-
they'll take that, what you see there, they'll be able to take that whole mechanism and replace it.
But something brighter, glarier?
Probably not, but we'll have to find out.
Okay. I guess we can review that when you come
Oh,
back
yeah,
through.
yeah, I mean,
Okay.
we'll do the work that has to be done to.
And could
get
you
it
show
right.
us the fixture that's proposed for the parking area?
Yeah, there's, should be under those same fixtures.
Was it on the page you were just on?
Yeah, so
Oh,
we're
is that-
using
Okay.
this one, it's 18 inches high, at along the ramp, and preferably right in front of the parking space, if we can achieve it. And then the Bega fixtures are the ones that are the aisle lights set in the wall, and in the curb that comes down the ramp.
Okay, Commissioner Jordan, you had a question.
I do, on the, on the parking issue, it does seem to me that the size, height, color, and placement of signage does affect the aesthetics of the building. My question is, when I've taken people up there, we've always had to park in the parking lot on the left. The space in front is not generally accessible to the public, correct?
Correct. And I think what transportation, we've tried several times to explain it to them, is, and zoning and planning, is that the required number of parking spaces for the 14-acre site of the mission is already accommodated in the parking lots that are on the other side of Laguna Street and in the back of the mission. That accounts for visitors, staff, and residents. Remember, the Franciscans live in these buildings. They actually reside up in those windows up in the front. And so that is already met, and the appropriate number of ADA spaces are already there. Now, people get confused because they look at the ADA spaces that are on Laguna Street, that are parking up perpendicular to Laguna, the pavement of Laguna Street up against the wall. Those actually belong to the city of Santa Barbara, because the road right-of-way of Laguna Beach, and it's been under, as I understand it, lots of controversy over the years, runs all the way up to the actual face of the arcade of the Covenant building, the wing. And it's the width of the edge of the sidewalk that's on the water side, water fountain side, and goes up within a few feet of that wall. Now, none of those ADA spaces meet any code, but they belong to the city of Santa Barbara.
I want to go back to the one space,
Yes.
new space that you're providing. My understanding is that if I arrive in an easy lift, I'm just not going to be able to pull in there because that area
Yeah.
is
Oh,
not
I'm
vehicular.
sorry. So-
So anybody who arrives there will be some sort of occasion on which there's a monitor or an attendant to allow them in.
Yeah.
The argument I would then make is that you don't need a tall sign. You may need a sign.
Mm-hmm.
But given that it's not generally accessible without human intervention to allow you into that space, that you could make an argument for a smaller sign.
We did that, and we were told that was not going to happen.
Okay.
Now, the other, just to be clear, and what I think nobody really clearly understands, the front doors of those missions the mission doors are generally always locked. They're only open on Saturday evening for Saturday service. They're open on Sundays because that's when the services occur. And the Mission Franciscans open that lot for informal parking for those occasions. The other occasions are for weddings and funerals or special events like Fiesta. Everyone else who wants to visit the mission and see the inside of the church, they have to go through the museum, which has a whole different route to get into that church. So we're not prohibiting, no one's prohibiting anybody from visiting the mission or seeing the mission. It's just that's accommodated by the museum store. Now, do they have some ADA problems? Sure, but that's not what this project's about.
I understand.
Thank you.
Other questions? Commissioner Lenvick?
Yes. Number one, I don't know that I would ask.
You
the
were
city-
on. You just turned it
Yeah,
off.
I don't know that I would ask the city any question that you knew you were going to get a wrong answer for. I say no signs and whatever. Go to your detail on the base of the pilaster. I
Right there, yes.
Yeah. That paving that it's landing on is new.
Correct. We
So-
propose moving the whole
So I would,
pilaster up.
and that upper line is the new paving line.
Right.
Is that correct?
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
So your grout will be up against the face of the plaster of the pilaster.
Yeah.
You don't show any grout there, but the way it would be
Right.
built, yeah. All right. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't landing down on the lower being the new. And the lower is not the new. The lower paving line is the existing paving. So when you, just out of curiosity, not that I really care much, when you put the new paving down, it's tile,
Yes,
and that's on a sand bed, or is it on,
it's on.
Concrete or
it's on a
mortar?
It's on a
Mortar?
mortar bed, yeah,
so you put a mortar bed down?
right. Because the tile that's there now on the current top is all deteriorating badly, and the minute we touch it, it's all going to fall apart. So, but as you recall, the whole purpose of this project is to get that platform up within a half
No, I
inch of the
understand that,
threshold.
yeah.
So that's what we're doing.
I'm just wondering what the
Yeah.
construction process is. So what does it say there?
Do we need to make that bigger?
You don't call out, well, go back where you were.
7, put a 7. No, the other.
So, well,
that's-
that's fine. That's the existing clay tile platform.
So we will be keeping because right now the top platform slopes really.
I understand that. I'm just wondering, elevation of the existing clay tile platform, why are you taking it out?
Because we need to demo to install the slab that we will be putting the new tiles on. Because we are short on one direction at the edge of the steps. We are maintaining part of that platform in place, and then at the door, we have to demo part of it, just because of the slope that it is right now.
That's not our concern. Thank you.
So, if I understand correctly, you're saying that you're not required to have any parking space?
The way we read the code,
If you
yes.
read that law, but that's not what the city's saying.
Well, no, is the city saying you need to have a parking space, or they're saying you
No,
have to
they're-
have that
they're
sign?
saying, no, they're saying we'll give you an answer after you pay your $400. That's
Pardon
what
my
they're saying.
interruption. Through the chair to the rest of the commission and the applicant, if a change is made to a project after it's been deemed complete, like the relocation of a parking space, it still needs to go through review. So those fees are covering the review by transportation, building and safety, stormwater, the departments that need to make sure that that space is appropriate where it is. So it's not whether or not they can have the space, whether or not they need the space. It's whether or not turnaround is met, whether or not stormwater is met, things like that, whether or not the ADA space is big enough to meet the ADA requirements. It's not about whether or not we're forcing them to have the space. It's just the change to the project requires additional review, which requires additional fees.
No, I understand that. What I'm getting at is it seems like all our problems go away if we just say, don't have a space.
Well, it's still, I don't know that. The city transportation may say, no, I don't know.
Well, it would seem like it's the building department that's interpreting ADA and
I understand that. All of this is under the building department. That was the argument I was trying to make with the city process, but the process doesn't allow for that kind of argument, as the staff just outlined to you.
yeah.
That doesn't allow you to do that.
Commissioner Ensberg.
Thank you. So you're going to pay the 400 and you'll find out.
Yeah,
And maybe
yeah.
with any luck at all, they will say, yes, you don't have to have it.
Yeah,
That's-
what might be helpful is if you all, as a board, say, you know,
support that.
we support that approach. We don't have any aesthetic issues, whether it's 1, 2, or whatever. That would be helpful information. So if they did say, okay, we agree with you, you don't have to have a space, then we're done.
We do have aesthetic issues. We do have aesthetic
Well-
issues. And we would, my opinion
If
is
there are
we would like,
spaces, yeah.
we would like to have it go away if it can,
Uh-huh.
and for aesthetic reasons, and that we feel like you're covered. But could I ask a different question? So
I
you're going
suppose
to
you
proceed
can.
with that, and that's not what we're just going to give you that
Yeah, that's
feedback, however the commission feels.
And through the chair to the rest of the commission, I would caution you to urge the applicant to make another change to the plans, because if they go through this review process with the plans as they're currently proposed, and then they make another change eliminating the parking space, it'll have to go through review
Correct,
again.
correct.
So if you, I mean, they can certainly wait and remove the space entirely, then we can send it through review again, but we need a final design plan before we can deem an application complete.
So do we give you another set of drawings showing no space?
If you decide to eliminate
Can we
the
get that done in the
space-
same $400?
Yes, if you wait to pay
Okay.
the fee
I
and
just-
you
I just need to
submit
know the
new
process.
plans, yes.
Just
One change per
Just as a
$400.
process clarification.
Or is it one change per $400, or do we
You
do
know,
it?
we shouldn't be discussing it here.
Okay.
I think the solution is, simply ignore the city.
Pardon me?
If you don't put the handicap space in, are they gonna come along and red tag you and turn your power off?
Let's not go there. Let's
Goodness
give our
gracious.
comments
Could
as
I-
to what we would like to see and then have them come back.
Okay, can I ask another question then?
Please.
Are we finished with that idea? I just have one other question about the lighting, the lights between the columns.
The past by Lester, yes.
And I just wanted to, ask if there's any way that those could be, I realize they're recessed, and then there's this thing that sticks up over that's 6 inches
No,
tall.
it's 3.5 inches.
Oh, it's 3.5 inches, so maybe it's okay.
Yeah, that's the lowest one we could find.
Okay. And you wouldn't be able to do, is that the best way for you to do it, as opposed to like in the wall and have it be more like a step light type thing? Would that get more complicated?
It would get more complicated, but aesthetically, I don't think that would do any different than these fixtures, because we'll probably have to put the same little louver that you saw on the lights, to keep the light so that someone was concerned about standing below the steps and getting glare in your eyes. So we'll have to, they do make that other fixture, we just didn't have a photograph of it, the little fins in there to keep the light down at the thing. But it makes it much more complicated because we're dealing with a veneer
Right.
and then solid concrete. So
Right.
there's not an easy way to
Right.
jackhammer all that stuff out.
Okay, I understand.
And no necessary to do that.
And it's not, because it's in, between the pilasters, it's not a trip hazard or anything like that? Okay.
Because it's set right as close as we can get to the back of that wall.
And then one last little thing is it matches?
Yes. Our effort is to match the tile that's everywhere else.
Okay.
But what's interesting is because of the age of this building, the Saltillo tile varies all over the place, even inside the church. You'll notice if you walk into the front piece, it's different than the aisles, and it's different when you get to the altar. So
Right.
it's changed over time.
Okay, thank you. That was all.
Okay, so I think maybe some straw votes are in order in terms of, are we supportive of having a parking space? Might be one straw vote. What are your thoughts?
Pardon my interruption. Because parking is not part of the commission's purview, I would urge you not to vote on how many
Well,
parking spaces
We have
to
aesthetic
require.
issues with the accoutrements that come along with a parking space, so one solution to that is to recommend no parking space, so I think that is our purview.
Okay.
It's a sticky wicket.
Yeah. I'll let you proceed. We'll see what happens.
Okay, so the question
Well,
is,
we're not going to take any action today.
No.
No.
And I think that the applicant has heard our concerns, and I think the applicant maybe has a little different approach in mind when he goes with the $400 in hand, that he can ask 2 or 3 questions of the staff or whatever. But I don't know that we need to take any straw votes, or, Mr. Chair.
Okay, well then I will
But-
suggest a motion to continue this indefinitely, and that the commission is concerned about the aesthetic impacts of lighting and signage that accompany this parking space, and urge the applicant to find an aesthetically acceptable solution. Is that
and
sufficient?
to underscore that how important this building is, and for that reason, these things that we may not have such a big concern about otherwise, we do because of the importance of this, our mission, our old mission, Santa Barbara.
And the proximity to the facade of the Mission, primary facade.
Yes.
So is that acceptable to everybody? Would
Yes.
somebody like to make that a motion
Are we making a motion?
to continue it?
Okay, I'll
indefinitely?
make the motion to continue with the comments as the vice chair has stated.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Ensberg and Dorden, okay. Roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Vice Chair House. We'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Lundbeck,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorden,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
and Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
We're working very hard to try to get this constructed before I'm Avenatti.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Staff, a little historical context. This board approves a lot of things, projects, details and whatever, that never show up in construction.
What do you mean?
Well, they just don't show up in construction.
You mean they don't do them?
They don't do them, right, and the building department doesn't do anything about it.
Right. We have seen that.
But it's not our policy to expect that, yes. But just historical context is all.
Okay, thank you. All right, next item on the agenda, item 3, is a new item here for concept review. And this is 133 to 135 East Ortega Street. And this is located in El Pueblo Viejo. The project is adjacent to 715 State Street, which is a city landmark and California State landmark. and 117 East Ortega, a contributing historic resource. This is a proposal to convert the 3 existing commercial structures to 24 studio units under the city's AUD incentive program, and includes, well, I won't go into all of that. The project was reviewed by the Historic Landmarks Commission under a one-time pre-application review on December 20th, 2023. So no final appealable action will take place at this meeting. Project compatibility findings will be required for project design approval. So if you would give your name for the record and then your presentation, please.
Through the chair.
Staff has comments.
Vice Chair
You just
House.
appeared like that.
How are you? Thank you. So just some brief comments
for the
on
record,
this item.
please.
Yes, Pilar Plummer, City of Santa Barbara Planning and Zoning Division. So you would have seen this project previously as a one-time pre-application consultation. Since it was reviewed by you, it went to the Planning Commission for concept review. They're not the discretionary authority on the project. They just provided comments. So overall, I would note that they were generally supportive of the project as an adaptive reuse project in the city. Some particular items that I wanted to point out since your last review, the applicant has decided to remove the vehicle parking on the side of the parcel that they were previously shown. So that's kind of a land banked area on the property. The Planning Commission was generally supportive of that. Other items that I wanted to note is that they did say to consider including an art component that could be shared with the public under the canopy area, consider a plaque or other reference to the Coca-Cola bottling plant originally on the property, and also to study adding more light through the canopy structure for the interior units. That was generally their feedback for the HLC. So we're here for concept review today, just consistency with your findings that you'll be making our project design approval. And otherwise, I'm here if you have any questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, name for the record and your presentation, please.
Hello, my name is Lonnie Roy. I am the agent for the property owner. So you've seen this project before, so I'm just going to briefly go over kind of the major changes from what was done previously. So as noted, it's an adaptive reuse project. So the existing structures on the corner are 2 stories with a single-story portion, and then there's this kind of large metal canopy portion in this area, and then there's a Quonset hut in the rear. So the previous application, as noted, had a parking lot, a single-loaded parking lot proposed in this existing gravel area, and that is now removed in this proposal. I'll bring up 117 East Ortega, which you had seen previously, and a note on that project was the building was proposed more in this portion of the lot, and there was request to push that building to the rear. In order to do that, which will be updated in the resubmittal for this project, is we are having to add an emergency vehicle access to this lot here for the fire department to get their 150-foot hose pole. So that will be a change from what you're seeing here to a resubmittal, just so you're aware. And that will have a wood fence around it per fire department's request, so it appears like it's part of 117 East Ortega, not 135 East Ortega. So essentially, absent that EVA, which will have a 5-foot planter in front of the fence, this gravel area will be fenced off. And the idea of removing the parking from that area was, when it came before the board previously, there was somewhat of a split in terms of if this was the highest and best use of the lot, then it might have made more sense to scrape it and build something at a higher density. So as noted, we're kind of seeing this as a land banking opportunity for future additional residential development. How that exactly looks isn't designed yet, but the owner wants to move forward with the adaptive reuse and kind of leave that as a future project and future additional units. So that's the concept there. Because you're not seeing the floor plan on here, a change from the previous application was there was 1 unit in these Quonset huts that opened up into that gravel area. Since we are no longer having parking there and that area is looked as future development, that is no longer happening. So there is no access, with the exception of going out to the street and over there from the development itself over into that area. The other change was that the prior application had a emergency vehicle access point going through this northerly portion of the site from Santa Barbara Street at the existing drive aisle. Fire department said they didn't require that, so that's now removed, and that's all part of the open space. Going through, well, make one other note. One other comment of the board was the prior application had a kind of switchback ramp at this entry here along East Ortega Street, and that was for accessibility reasons. Now we're looking at accessibility a little bit differently, using the Santa Barbara Street entrance as the primary, and then we've also added a entrance in the current roll-up door opening of the metal canopy structure, that would also be an accessible entrance. So the entrances as they currently are on East Ortega are proposed to remain. And we'll move on to the canopy. So there's comments both from this board and planning commission to try to get more light into that canopy area. So the right side of that canopy does have kind of double skylights, so we're replicating that on the left-hand side. So currently there's only single skylights, so we're doubling the skylights on that side. The remainder that you're seeing is our solar panels, and that is the number that is needed to meet the city's goal for the number of units that are proposed on this project. And another point of clarification that I wanted to make is that previous application, we just called out all of the open space that we had as open yard. And so that's where the modification request was coming from. But if you just calc the 15% of the lot area needed, we don't require a modification. We have enough open yard, 80% that is uncovered, and then 20% that is covered to meet the current standards. So we do have excess open yard underneath that canopy, but it's not counted towards the requirement, so there isn't a modification request per se. So those are the major changes of the project. I'll just scroll to the landscape sheet because that's kind of been a change as well, just in the design of the space. So it's kind of built off this central access point with kind of different nodes that are built off of that. So you have kind of lounges, gathering spaces, barbecues, fire pits. So that's kind of the idea, using different paving materials. There was some concern with plant material underneath that canopy, so the amount of landscape area has been reduced. We still believe that you can get shade plants to thrive in that space. So that's been another change from the previous proposal. And that pretty much concludes the major changes of the project. Other than that, it's substantially the same. Here's where you're seeing kind of the difference in that added entry. Before was kind of a picture window, so it was higher up, and that sandstone wall continued along to the end of the building. And I will conclude my presentation at that.
Thank you very much. Let's open it to public comment.
Thank you, Vice Chair House. We will start with in-person public comment. At this time, I do not have any slips for this particular item and no one in the audience to make a comment. So we will move on to virtual attendance, and at this time, I see no hands raised for this item, and we did not receive any written correspondence. So at that, I'll turn it back over to you, Vice Chair House.
Thank you. I will close public comment and open it to questions from the commission. Appearing that there are no questions, comments?
Of course, I have questions.
Okay, well,
I was
good.
going to let
Jump in
others
there.
jump in. Thank you. You had images, 3D images that showed, and this is different. You have, it's much more developed, and you have colors and things like that. Maybe you could talk about that a little bit, the colors for the buildings, and also the 3D rendering I recall seeing. Is that not in here?
Yeah, well, so there are a few landscape architectural 3D renderings, which aren't necessarily as representative of the architecture itself.
No, but it shows the project,
Yeah.
right? Yes.
Yeah.
Those, okay.
So response to the colors, essentially the existing colors that are on the structures are proposed to remain the same. So yeah, this is a rendering from the landscape architect looking into the metal canopy from that strong axis, and you're seeing kind of the different activity areas or recreation areas that are off of that point. This is looking a little bit further into the space, so you can see kind of the movie screen, some mural on that wall. A note to kind of Planning Commission's comment on a potential to make this public. The owner isn't really willing to do that because of security concerns, to have public entering into that space that isn't well visible from the street. That is kind of a storefront system, so from the sidewalk you would be able to see that mural, but it wouldn't be accessible to the public. That would be a keyed and secured access point.
Right. Great, thank you. And then also, talk a little bit about that, the former parking, and the former parking that is being, as I understand what you said, the fire department access to the other project, to the west, yeah. And what happens if that is developed? You would still have that fire department access? If you choose to develop that into housing later, you would still maintain those two functions?
Correct. Essentially how we would see it is it's likely that that EVA would at that point become a driveway, and you'd likely have units with garages that take access from there. So yeah, it would remain.
Something like that?
Yeah.
And what does it, what are you proposing for it right now? Did maybe I missed that part, where, landscape-wise, what happens to it? Where's the driveway for the fire department, and how is that space being developed as part of this project we're reviewing today?
So it essentially is along the shared property line between 135 East Ortega and 117 East Ortega. It is a 24-foot wide, which is the minimum the fire department needs, and it's going to be a decorative colored scored concrete as currently proposed. It extends, I think, to about this portion of the lot. So it goes down, and then there would be a 5-foot planter on the end of that and a 6-foot high wood fence. So that planter would have trees that I forget what intervals exactly, and ground plane material to kind of soften the fence.
So you don't have that drawn, you haven't developed that yet to show us what that would look like?
Not in this, because this was submitted prior to us
Okay.
developing that.
Got
So
it.
that's going to get resubmitted next
Okay.
week, so it should become in front of your board in hopefully like about a month.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, those are all my questions, thanks.
Any other questions?
Yeah,
Mr. Lampick.
I have a question. I'm concerned about this metal building which is being saved.
The canopy that,
Yeah, the structure that's there, and they're improving underneath it, but they're making no improvements to the exterior of it, which would reflect. This isn't an EPV, is it?
it is.
It is an
That's why
EPV.
we're seeing it.
I thought it was adjacency issues we were seeing it, but we're in EPV, okay. I'm concerned that there's been no effort made to make this existing building more appropriate to the required architecture of EPV, and make it a little more like the existing building on the site. I don't know that I am willing to approve this without some effort made to make it better.
Can we
And,
see your elevations of that?
well, I mean, we're looking at the south
Right.
Yeah.
elevation there. And if you go on the other side, it's the north elevation, which is nothing. It's a total opening, and
Yeah.
I don't know that we would approve a new building in EPV that was totally open like that without some effort made to have it blend in. There's just been no effort at all made to make this building.
Can we see your elevations of that street frontage? Commissioner Jordan?
I was gonna hold this to the comment period, but it's on this point. This is I understand, a concept review with no final appealable action, so we will see this again.
Yeah.
The elevations read to me as very blank. I mean, there's no way we're gonna let that go by. But I'm also wondering if at this preliminary stage, if what we're looking at really is just a feature of the presentation software that's making it just read like blank spaces on a page. And I would expect the next time we see something in which we are expected to take an action, elevations that address some issues of character and context.
Staff, do we have minutes from the one-time pre-application to see what direction we gave at that time? So I seem to recall there was some discussion about this.
I have a couple.
Commission comments were the size, bulk, and scale are appropriate. The project is compatible with the neighborhood. Story poles are not necessary. Encourages the applicant to study the covered open yard to make it feel more light-filled. One commissioner suggested a 3D model. Study the ADA ramp at the entry and study the entry and circulation. So there weren't any comments specific to that.
Well, I have matured.
You're constantly doing that.
Yes, I have matured. But I think that our comments today should, at least I hope mine would be, that we need to have some effort made to make the existing exterior elevations of this shed structure appear to fit into the community, the EPV community and the standards of EPV. It does not do that now. And I would be sorely pressed to cast my vote in favor of this project as it's currently envisioned.
Okay.
I
Let me
would-
just ask you, do you have any issues with the north elevation of it that is basically open?
Yes, I do. Yes. I mean, if you go to the north elevation, you're going to see,
Which is not visible from the street, I don't believe.
well, yes and no. Yes and no.
It is not.
It is not, okay.
Yeah, and I don't know that that is the criteria by which we ignore architecture
I
in
understand.
EPV. It's very generous of you to support him on that elevation,
I haven't said a word.
but I just think that we've got a large building here which needs to have some attention paid to it. I'm concerned that there's no parking provided for how many units in this development?
24.
Yeah, 24. There's no parking for any of these tenants.
We don't have purview on that, do we?
No, I understand that. I understand that.
Okay.
And there's no way that a moving van is going to be able to deliver and pick up furniture from where? From Santa Barbara Street? I mean, I don't know. It's access, is part of livability, is part of being a good neighbor in the community. Providing parking is being a good neighbor in the community. I'm concerned about those things, and all of them, most of them, we have no control over. But I do have some individual control over the architecture and the lack of it.
Okay, let's have other comments.
I think
Commissioner
that,
Jordan.
to build on that, I think the underlying principle here is that this is the reconfiguration of a commercial and light industrial building into a residential building. And what might be appropriate or acceptable for a light industrial building is not appropriate or acceptable for a residential building in the neighborhood. And that's why I want to say, but I'm also willing to say, I think it's the presentation software right now. So I need to see some architecture the next time it comes by.
Comments?
So I'm in quite agreement. I mean, just looking here, so you have actually a very nicely designed building on the right, and then you have this massive wall of a commercial-looking construction next to it. They don't look related to each other. They don't look integrated. There are a lot of blank wall space. So for this to be part of the EPV, it really feels like it just landed there from someplace else. That's all I can say. I would like to see in the next approach, see a lot more emphasis on the design and the component, especially of the larger building on the left, because the two just don't seem related to each other at all. So,
Commissioner Ansberg, another comment?
Well, I want to say one thing that I do really appreciate about the project, that it's adaptive reuse. But then I also understand that you're thinking this is kind of a placeholder, like you may, well, actually, I take that back, because you were saying it was the parking that was that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I do like this kind of quirky mix of buildings, because that's what was here. That was what was here in Santa Barbara. It's like the Cravioto brothers, which I am so sorry is no longer there. So I kind of appreciate this, this industrial building. And I do, of course, that one building, I like the way these very disparate things are coming together. I think it's very interesting. And I like the way that you have put them together in a way that is reusing them into housing. So I want to give you credit for that and appreciate that. I also do appreciate what the other commissioners have said, that I think that, looking at this one elevation, the south elevation, that those windows there on the right that we see in the older structure, that maybe that pattern could be brought through and you could have more, just bring it together, as Commissioner Butler said, figure out a way to not try to make it be exactly the same and let it be what it is, but also have them relate a little bit more. So I think that's what everyone else was also saying. But I do want to just give you credit for the fact that these are buildings that have been here for a long time, and they do have a history of Santa Barbara in that, and they are what they are, even the Quonset huts. So I think that's really cool. I like that part about it. And I do really like the renderings that you had. I thought that was a really enlivened space, and it felt really fun and new. So I thought that was pretty cool. I like that you've put the skylights in there. The more you can maybe open up that roof and make it not feel quite so heavy. But I think you can make some, and maybe some kinds of, between the windows and maybe some kind of artwork and murals can work. I'm sure you've seen that beautiful mural over at the Presidio of the Dragon over there. There's just so many great artists in town, and that you could possibly do some more of that kind of thing with more architecture, windows, etc. So, so that's what I would say about it. Thank you.
Let me ask the commission a question. Does anybody else have a concern about the north elevation of this building just remaining open, or does that also need major changes?
I'll make a comment.
Okay.
I think in that it is on the interior, I think you should look at it and see what you want to do with it, and if you want to make it be a little bit more romantic somehow, or not just a big gaping opening, I think that could be beneficial to your tenants and to the project overall. But I would tend to, I always like for people to spend their money, in the public realm, on the front door, places that everybody's going to see, and not, just, lower the cost by not having to do so much in those areas. But I think that you can figure out something cool or interesting to do there that would kind of take the curse of the, or No, I shouldn't say it like that. I should say to make it even, to celebrate what it is. Something like that.
Anybody else have a position on this? Okay. You know, I certainly love those Quonset buildings. Those are quirky. This building that we're discussing, I wouldn't consider quirky. And yes, it is part of what's been in Santa Barbara, but it is sadly lacking. And so I would also agree that some tender loving care needs to be given to that to make it feel, you know, like it belongs there and relates to EPV. That's the most important thing, which is just not doing right now. So would somebody like to make a motion for an indefinite continuance with the comments that the commission is supportive of the adaptive reuse project and largely supportive of the architecture changes as proposed, but now what's the address of that one? Is that 133?
133.
The 133 East Ortega building needs a lot of work to conform to design standards of El Pueblo Viejo and also to feel some kinship with 135 East Ortega Street. Anything else? Okay, who would like to make
So
that motion?
moved.
Okay,
Second.
Dorden and Ensberg. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Dorden,
Yes,
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lenvig,
Yes.
Vice Chair House,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you.
So, we can take a 5-minute recess. or-
Well, if I could suggest a brief interruption, I did get some feedback on the approval of the minutes, so if we want to do that now while we're waiting to start the next item.
So what was the feedback you got?
So the feedback that I received was that as long as Commissioner Ensberg has reviewed the minutes and the materials for the hearing, she can vote. She doesn't need to abstain from either, even if she was not present at the last meeting. If she reviewed like the video, the plans, and the minutes, she can vote on that. But if she does need to abstain on both of those items, we will still have a quorum, as Commissioner Lenvig said, and we will still be able to vote for approval for both of those. So, Commissioner Ensberg, did you review the materials for the October 9th meetings, or will you need to abstain on both of those votes?
I was assuming that I would not, that it wouldn't, so I did not.
Okay.
My apologies.
No problem. So yes, we
So-
will vote on the approval of the full commission minutes, and we'll reopen the motion for the consent minutes, and you can abstain from both, and then we can still vote for approval on both of
Okay,
those.
great.
Okay, so we are going back to general business. Item B, approval of the minutes of the Historic Landmarks Commission meeting of October 9th, 2024. Is there a motion?
so moved.
Dorden and
Second.
Lenvig. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Dorden,
Yes,
Commissioner Ensberg,
Abstain.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lenvig,
Yes.
Vice Chair House,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you. And now we will also reopen item C of general business, approval of the minutes of the Historic Landmarks Commission consent meeting of October 9th, 2024. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Butler
Second.
and Lenvig. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Dorden,
yes,
Commissioner Ensberg,
Abstain.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lenvig,
Yes.
Vice Chair House,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay, we'll now take a 2-minute recess. As the next item is agendized for 3:15.
3:15.
Okay, so reconvening the Historic Landmarks Commission meeting of October 23rd, 2024, and we're on to item 4, 17 to 21 West Montecito Street. This is a continued item here for project design approval. Located in El Pueblo Viejo, the proposal is to demolish existing structures and construct a new 3-story hotel consisting of 44 guest rooms and an underground 44-space parking garage. The Planning Commission approved a parking modification development plan and coastal development permit on October 3rd, 2024. Project compatibility findings are required. The project was last reviewed on March 27th, 2024. So if you give your names for the record, please, and then your presentations.
Clay Arell, Architect, AB Design Studio.
Aaron Carroll, Landscape Architect.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks.
And pardon my interruption through the chair to the rest of the commission. If you want to go over the minutes from the last hearing, they're up on the
Yes, the
screen right
minutes
now.
from the last meeting were to continue to the Planning Commission with comments. The commission is in favor of the project and feels it is ready for Planning Commission. They thank the applicant for addressing their previous comments well and encourage them as their project goes forward. Add refinements to the front entry to give it more poetry and a particular character. Recommendation to pull references from the Mission Revival style of the train station. Adjust the proportions of the garage openings. Narrow the opening, drop the height, add detail, and give more heft to the corner. Refine the third floor parapet wall above the walkway so that it has visual support. Suggestion to use brackets, bring down a sliver of wall, or add something to hold it up. Either use wood posts with wood beam or plaster pier with plaster beam on the right side third floor corner. The commission is split on whether plaster or red tile would be more suitable for the elevator tower. The commission does not want to be able to see landscape on the roof deck from the sidewalk or right-of-way. The new window openings are too big. Add more plaster to the openings. Recommendation to lower the third floor plaster and/or detailing such as plaster corbels or something that feels enclosed and soft. Break up the red tile roof with a cornice so that it reads as 2 buildings instead of 1 long one. Recommendation for all cornice elements in the rear portion to be 2x8 for the slope recess, 2x8 for the slope recess to have depth for the sill. Okay, those are the window openings, I guess. Update the 3D renderings and elevations to show full landscape, and the commission appreciates the applicant working the history of the motorcycle and family into the design. Okay.
One last interruption, apologies. Commissioner Dordan was absent from this hearing. Did you review the?
Yes, I did.
Thank you so much.
Yes, I did.
Staff, do you have comments?
Chair House, Kelly Broderson with Community Development, and as you read, the project was approved by Planning Commission and subsequently was appealed and will be going to City Council mid-December. I also wanted to thank Commissioner Butler for attending the Planning Commission hearing on behalf of the HLC Commission. Thank you.
And can you bring us up to date on the appeal? What is it they're appealing? What about it?
The Commission, Chair House, the appellant is here today to speak on the project, and the main concern is the fact that the applicant is proposing parking in the flood zone, below grade parking. However, the building official was there and also our floodplain coordinator was there at the Planning Commission meeting and confirmed that the project complies with the requirements of FEMA and the building code, et cetera.
Interesting, thank you. Okay, presentation time.
Okay. I'm not on. No, I'm on. You all remember where this project is.
Oh, yeah.
I don't need to go through a majority of these drawings. Let's see. I'll come back for Aaron on landscaping, but we've.
Let's start with landscaping. That's more
maybe,
interesting.
Why don't we start with landscaping? Sure. Let's start here.
There was only 2 comments on landscape. The ground level didn't change at all. The main comment at last meeting was the taller trees that were on the roof deck planters. and those have been changed to much smaller shrubby trees that would get 6, 7 feet high. Dwarf umbrella tree and plumeria are the only quote-unquote trees. They're pretty small.
These are these right here, right?
Won't see those from the street. And did you update the renderings to show additional landscaping?
No, we didn't. Our renderings show the landscaping at the ground
Yeah.
floor, but there's
Yeah.
nothing visible from the roof side, so.
Yeah. That was the only other comment, was about showing the landscaping in the renderings.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let me see.
So
What's
move on
the,
to architecture.
Could you go down the list of our comments and address each one?
Be good.
There it is. Oops. Sorry, guys. This was scrolling before, now it's not scrolling. We've had a little bit of a change here. Let me go back. On the roof, we've added a roof deck bar and expanded trellis, and a little pizza oven upstairs, but there's no other habitable space up there. That was a request from the development team, so we've incorporated that into the roof deck. Where are we here? Buttons. Okay, so these are my notes too, so let's see. I'm gonna skip around a little bit. Oops, we're back, I think.
We lost our screen.
Oh, this flashed.
Yep, no signal, it says.
Somebody kicked the bottom.
Oops.
I don't think I moved anything.
Oh, here we are.
All right, Houston. Let me go to the front. I'll start here. Whoops, that's not letting me pan. There was a comment about making this beefier or heavier. We are right on, I mean, we can't move over any more to the left, so we're keeping that profile kind of the way it was. We've reduced the height of the head of the garage opening, but this is the minimum distance requirement of 22 feet that we're required to have. So we're really hemmed in on this side of the building. We've made some changes in the front. We've added some lighting, added awning here, added some curtains, added a little balcony, Juliet balcony railing. There was a comment about making this walkway feel a little different, so we've added a wing wall kind of down both sides to kind of let that thing land, that parapet up here that's sitting up there. See on
Floor upper right, the column.
third, yeah, this changed, sorry, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. We had a wood beam here, it was like a wood post and I don't know, it was weird. But we went all plaster on that corner there, and added a railing on that side. These openings have gotten smaller, there's much more sort of heftier plaster elements. So these openings reduced in size, which was a comment on here. Window openings are too big, add more plaster. We've added some walls on the side of this too. This opening was just like the front one. So we've landed that parapet down on the two ends or two sides of that. You can see, whoops, it's not working for me here. On the back of the building, we've again made the reductions in the size of the openings, similar on all four sides. We're showing some curtains here in the renderings, just to show the intent. But we probably have them on all of them. Break up red roof with a cornice so that it reads as two buildings instead of one long one. I don't recall what that was about, but we didn't change this roof line, and the building then breaks here and then goes into a parapet. So I wasn't exactly sure where that comment was from, or it was a carryover from the prior version, because at one point, if you remember our first hearing, we had, this is all tile across here. So we kind of felt like we feel like having some tile on here along this edge is good, and along the front, so we kind of like the direction that we were in. And let's see. Cornice elements at the rear to be 2 by 8. So that was just talking about how we're doing a recessed sill or a slope sill on these back windows on the back part of the building. So we're studying that, but we've reduced the slope a little bit to the slope sills on that. There's a comment about the history of the motorcycle and the family and the design. We're definitely going to do that. I think we had the weather vane on here before. Should still be on the front. Yeah, up here. We've thought about maybe doing something here at the entry to the garage as well. We haven't.
Stick a motorcycle.
Just mount a Harley to the front of the building, right? That would be fun. We're definitely going to do something inside the hotel where it's sort of like an art program or something along those lines, because we definitely want to bring that into the hotel. We've talked about naming it certain things, but that hasn't landed anywhere yet. Let's see if I got the garage opening for our parapet, wood post. Item 6, the commission is split on whether plaster or red tile would be more suitable for the elevator tower. We didn't change it. It's right here. I think at one point we had it as tile, and then we went to parapet, and then, we're happy to do whatever the board wants us to do on that, to be honest. I think our first version, this was a tile roof, kind of like this one here. Happy to take direction from the commission on that one. I went through it kind of quickly, but I think I got them all. I skipped the ones where you guys are saying nice things about the project.
Was there additional comment in the comment about the window openings, about softening them with a corbel or something?
There was a comment about corbel. Where was that one? Yeah, add more plaster to the openings. Recommend to lower the third floor plaster. I think that was the head of this. This got lowered here. And or add detailing such as plaster corbels or something that feels enclosed and soft. Yeah, we looked at this once before, and both the owners and all of us kind of felt that it was too much. I think it's helped soften up with the railings and the curtains and things like that. I kind of like the simplicity of it, to be honest. So I think that covers the list on here. And that's my presentation, and I'll be happy to address the public comments after they
Thank you.
Public comment.
We'll open it to public comment then.
Excuse me. Thank you, Vice Chair House. We do have a slip for comment from Mr. Steve Johnson. Please approach the podium. You will have 2 minutes to speak. Make sure you turn your mic on.
How do I turn the mic on?
Just push the button and the green light will come on.
Yeah, it's on.
Push.
Okay, there you go.
Is this amplified?
Yes.
2 minutes is not going to be enough, but I'll do the best I can. The fundamental issue here is the applicant and the staff have failed to recognize that the governing standard is not FEMA, it's ACE 24. ACE 24 does not allow hotels above subgrade parking. The city has recast the project as a mixed-use project and also fails to understand the requirements for mixed use. But let me get to something much more significant that I only discovered. I never looked into the ACE 24 that closely, but after hearing the absurd interpretations I had the last several weeks, I have looked more carefully and discovered that nothing, no construction, residential, non-residential, no construction is allowed below the base flood elevation, actually the DFE. No construction is allowed below the DFE in areas subject to flash flooding. Want to repeat, in areas subject to flash flooding, nothing can be constructed below the DFE. It's right here, ACE 24, page 11, 3.3. I've provided all this information to the building department. I'm sure they're looking at it with bewilderment because the city has already permitted 2 subgrade parking structures close to creeks that are subject to flash flooding. Chapala 1, a huge project down on the corner of Chapala and Gutierrez, has subgrade parking and it's subject to flash flooding. The city has a parking lot close to the California Hotel. It's just a parking structure, but nothing can be constructed below the DFE if it's subject to a flash flood. In order to, if you're not sure, you're required to conduct a study. No study was conducted for those 2 projects. No study was conducted for this project. This project on the plan still says the governing standard is FEMA. That's not correct. At a minimum, the plans need to be updated to show that the governing standard is 24. And then there should be more as well, but I'll leave it at that. What have I got left? A second?
It's over here.
You're done.
So your 2
I'm
minutes
done
is
with
up.
it. Thank you very much for your
Okay,
time.
Thank you very much. We very much appreciate your comments, but we don't have purview over that. But if it changes, then the building will change and we will review that application.
Future applicants.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Okay, is there any more public comment?
At this time, I do not have any hands raised virtually for this particular item, and we did receive 3 separate written correspondence from Mr. Steve Johnson. And at that, I'll turn it back over to you, Vice Chair House.
Thank you. I'll close public comment, open it to questions from the commission.
Mr. Vice Chair, I have one question.
Commissioner Butler.
The garage openings, is there any plan to put a garage door or some sort of mechanism to close the garage doors at any time? Or will it just remain persistently open?
Let's see. We've talked about this, and I believe the owners and the development team, oh, it just flipped again. The owners and the development team have considered that, and I think we might look at putting some kind of a closing door, a rolling door, or something like that. Yeah.
And then I guess the question then becomes, will that be visible below the head of the garage itself, the container? For that, I'm waving in the air here, but, you know, because obviously we don't like that.
Yeah, it depends on what kind of door we're going to do there. We've looked at a few different potential options, but haven't landed on anything yet.
Other questions?
Yeah, I would like to, I am not able to bring the plan up on my pad here. Would you bring the garage level floor plan up?
Gosh, dang it. Yeah, 1 second. Garage level?
Yeah, I want you tell me you tell me you can't make that opening any narrower, and I just want to see what you're talking about.
We have 22 feet from this wall to this wall.
And that's what the law says, huh?
That's the requirements from the city, yeah. Because we're more than, I forget the number, 25 parking spaces?
Whatever.
So if you're under 25, you can go with a much narrower entry.
Is there a provision for a modification of that requirement?
Don't think so. I mean...
Have you asked them?
No, but...
Okay. That would be good to do.
Well, it's an aesthetic problem from the standpoint of how some of us may view it. And it's an architectural problem from the standpoint of how you design to solve the problem. I don't know that what you've shown us is particularly acceptable. And that bothers me. Go back to the elevations, or that elevation. I think what's happening here, I realize that we made some suggestions previously to do some decorative work at that opening. And I think that decorative work merely draws our attention to something which is not particularly handsome. If that was simply all plaster, a plaster on the right side, a plaster head, and a plaster on the left side. And, maybe the plaster's in size or whatever, or you do something, over the center of the door. But I think right now it's drawing our attention to something which is not too handsome. And we have pretty much...
This is sounding like a comment.
Yeah, it does.
Well, yeah, okay, it's a comment. So I have no other questions.
Okay. Are there other questions? I have a question. Do you have a section that would include the trellis on the roof?
Wait a second here.
I was unclear from looking at the plan of the roof, actually the other way, perpendicular to that.
Oh, maybe, I don't think I have, not right there, but it's here.
Okay, well, that actually, I guess, tells me, from the plan view, it looked like the trellis came very much to the exterior wall of the building, but I see it is back a ways.
Yeah, it's set back from the parapet here.
Okay. Any other questions, comments then? Do you want to continue, Commissioner Lenvik?
Well, yeah, go back to the elevation then. So I'm of the opinion that it is a very difficult, negative space on that elevation, and we're drawing too much attention to it by whatever stone or tile or whatever you're putting around it, and it would be, in my opinion, without having drawn it up and compared and whatever, I would say that I would prefer not to have that architectural element on the two jambs and the head. I don't know what else could be done there. It just is not a good deal. And
What's the construction of the first floor walls? Is it 8-inch CMU or something? Or you're not that far along?
Not that far along, Mr. Chair, but I think it's either going to be concrete or CMU on that podium. On that
Well,
deck.
yeah, it'll be masonry, right? I mean, you're basically a platform building, and you'll be building a dry finish for that. It's below flood level, so, or a wet finish, whatever they are. Go to the other elevation. On the far right, far left side, are those openings back a ways?
These?
Yeah.
Curtains? That's the corner.
Corner patio
there's a
kind of arrangement?
Corner patio, yeah.
So it's just right there.
Here and here, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This face is set back from the
Yeah,
building.
we're,
sidewalk.
I think you maybe had a wood post there before. Is that right?
That was on the front.
Yeah.
We removed that, yeah.
When these wall elements at edges are very narrow, sometimes they're better to have an architectural element there which represents its function as being, better and narrow, a wood post or a decorative column or whatever. But you don't have that ability there because you're not recessed with the wall line, with the window line, right?
I'm not sure what you're saying. Can we see the rear elevation?
1 second. This is that same
Yeah.
corner, so the windows are set back. The door openings are set back, excuse me.
How far back are they?
About 5 feet.
Say it again, 5 foot back?
5 feet.
Like a little
And so you go around the other side, that's not set back. How does that work?
No, set back both sides, isn't it?
Go back to the street elevation again.
Let's look at it and plan.
Kind of like this, isn't it?
Well,
This is the open.
all right, all right, so that isn't a window there then?
No, that's not a window, that's a wall.
No, but right down there.
That's the railing.
This is a railing.
Yeah.
The curtain on it.
Yeah. So the window or the door system is here.
I'm just, again, we've got that very narrow wall element, at least in 2 dimension.
Well,
on the corner.
I would agree with you somewhat here. Looking at the elevations, they look more similar around the corner,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm seeing now that this is substantially smaller, so if that were a bit bigger, that
Yeah,
would help.
that's
Or if they
easy.
were equal, that would
Yeah.
help.
That's easy.
Well, it won't be equal, but.
Or even just a solid column,
Yeah.
I mean, of
Go back to the
plaster,
exterior,
but.
go back to the exterior elevation again and look at that. Yeah.
So it's thicker here
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, that,
and thinner here.
yeah, there.
yeah, they don't look that dissimilar, but on the plan, they're very dissimilar.
Yeah.
What's the head height there? I mean, is that at the ceiling?
No, this is probably 7 feet here.
But the upper one is taller.
This one's taller, yeah.
Yeah. You see, that should be brought down. I think it should be brought down. And I think that the corner, now we're really looking at this in 2-dimension, and it's going to be a lot different in 3-dimension.
Do you have a model view of that corner?
Not of that corner, no.
Okay. Well, we'll leave that as a comment to study it. Are there other comments?
No.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Butler?
Can we pull up the garage entry again? Because I'm inclined to,
In the elevation?
yes, support Commissioner Lindvik's thought. If you look at the front of the building, there's a lot going on there, which is good. I think the design is good. But instead of, adding that feature, I think if you went to straight plaster, first of all, it would make the garage maybe feel a little smaller, and it would lighten up a little bit, because there is so much going on in the front. Just a suggestion, but, because that is a big feature, it's a big hole there.
Yeah.
And rather than drawing attention to it, that might, again, reduce that effect a little bit. So I would kind of support that thought.
I would agree with that also. If it weren't right up to the property line, a buttress to that right side would appear to give more mass, but that's not an option. So, I would certainly hope that you would talk to, is it transportation that has that requirement?
I believe it's in transportation.
Okay,
It might-
whoever.
It's in the parking design standards.
Yeah, see if there's some possibility for relief from that requirement, even a foot, because if that's just the edge of 8-inch CMU or something, or even 12-inch, it's unfortunate. And also, I agree that, you've got that focal point of an entry, and this is just kind of competing with that, so I think plaster would be simpler.
Yeah.
Now, on your side elevations, if we can go to the perspective views, the model views, that's a good one.
Oops, sorry.
My sense is that you've done a nice job with the front, but the side views just look much more contemporary. And though you might have narrowed the openings, something could be done to soften those, and there could be a shallow arch at the top of those openings. And maybe it just needs to be at the top floor or something, but, I would experiment with that because it just kind of looks stark and contemporary compared to the rest of the architecture. Any other comments?
Yes,
Is there
please.
agreement about that? Or
Yeah, I agree.
I have a
Okay.
comment.
Yeah, I agree.
Commissioner
Yes,
Ansberg?
Thank you. Well, I would like to say that I really like this project. And I think that they've done a really good job. And my, sense of it, I have a very positive feeling about it. So I think it's really good. I think we could nitpick and go, get into a whole lot of stuff, and it's kind of one person's opinion versus somebody else's opinion. I don't feel the same way that the others do about the garage. I think making it all white around there makes it out of balance because we have that low wall, and we talked about that last time, about making that low garden wall white, and we decided that that was a terrible idea because it would be hard to maintain, et cetera. But I think by having this, so I like the way they have addressed it. I think it feels interesting. I think it's good. I think what could help to mitigate that, the big opening would be some kind of a wrought iron gate. Something decorative there, I think, could help make it just feel okay. not a roll-down door, but something decorative. I think that could do the trick.
I don't know how that's going to work, 22 feet wide with 11-foot panels
Well,
swinging
maybe
in there.
we'll let them figure that out, but maybe maybe there's something that they could do in that regard. But it doesn't bother me to the extent that it bothers the rest of you. I do, and I also, on this elevation, is this the one on the top there?
Mm-hmm.
I hear what you're saying, Chair House, about sort of the contemporary thing, but I think that the curtains kind of offset that. And I think that they kind of are a nice way of addressing that. And I think they could be, I don't have a problem with them, but I think they could potentially be a little smaller and get a little bit more. I know you already, hit the shrink button once, but maybe you could do it again. So I think they're, I like the curtains. I do feel, I like this, the front entrance has the awnings. And then this side has the curtains. I'm just wondering if it's a lot of curtains. But they each are rooms, so it's appropriate. So, yeah, I like it. And I think that about the elevator tower, I like the way you have it. I don't think it should be a tile roof. I think it starts competing with that corner element. So I like the way it's looking now. I think it's simple enough. I like the way you broke up the roof. I think it's working. So I really, like I say, I could have my own opinion about a lot of stuff, but it doesn't, it's good what you've done, and I think it is very sweet and good looking. Maybe that corner, as Commissioner Lenvick says, could be maybe you could beef that up a little bit, especially, or the other side shrink down. Somehow they're just kind of out of balance there. Yeah, so those are my comments, and I thank you.
I would agree that we really appreciate everything you've done on this project. It's come a long ways from when we first saw it. I don't know if I recall that there was a suggestion for awnings, but I recall that that's not possible because of the property line. I think the curtains provide that splash of color that we're hoping for. But I would have a concern that curtains are something that are not permanent necessarily, and if those were taken down, then we're still left with these big rectangular openings. So I personally would still like to see those softened somehow.
Or we have them on the drawings, but they don't show up in construction, and a permit for occupancy is issued.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so the question is, are we ready to make a project design approval motion, or do we want to see this come back with those issues addressed?
I would move to approve it.
Yes, I would.
Okay, all right, so this will be a motion for project design approval with comments to study the garage entry to see if the width can be reduced at all to beef up the building mass at the right side of the opening.
Northwest, yeah.
Yeah. On the southeast corner of the building, to study the corner elements, to read more as a solid column that is equal in width on both elevations, and to study the rectangular openings on the east and west elevations to further soften them with the suggestion of arched openings. And we are fine with the elevator tower as presented. I think those were the only issues. Was there anything else? What's that? I addressed that, yeah. A gate.
If you're going to have one, you've got to show it to us.
Yeah. So.
I mean, I'm not sure that what I'm going to see I'll like.
Yeah. Okay.
Something decorative.
Okay, so that was a motion by Enberg, right?
Yes, yes.
Pardon my
and can I-
interruption to
yeah.
the chair. Just to clarify that last comment, that's a suggestion from the commission to study adding a gate at the garage door, correct?
Some kind
To
of,
show whatever kind of gate or
closure.
garage closure.
Gotcha.
Show it on the drawings. Okay.
And Vice Chair House, could I also say, I think we all really appreciate the acknowledgement of the former building and the motorcycle shop that it was once upon a time. You could also, it might be interesting also in your entry, your floor, maybe there's some kind of a mosaic pattern or something like that you might consider doing to also bring that out. But anyway, I think that's a really interesting and cool idea. And maybe having you mentioned a display of some kind to tell the story. So I think that's really cool, and glad that you're, embracing that.
Do we have a second for the motion?
Second.
Okay, by Butler. So roll call vote, please.
Pardon my interruption, if we could go through the project compatibility findings as well.
Oh, yes.
Oh, of course. That this project is consistent with the design guidelines. Do I need to read that whole entire sentence?
No.
Okay. And that it is.
Make the findings.
Okay, and the finding, number 2, compatible with the architectural character of the city and the neighborhood, that it's the appropriate size, mass, bulk, height, and scale. Its sensitivity to adjacent landmarks and historic resources. They did reference the train station and and being a former historical structure prior. Public views of the ocean and mountains are not negatively impaired, and the use of open space and landscaping has been addressed.
Any other findings? You sure?
Yeah.
Come on.
I know.
There's not another 6 more.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
eerily
Roll
just
call
those
vote,
findings.
please.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorden,
Yes.
Commissioner Insberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Limvick,
Yes.
Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And this is appealable to City Council within 10 days. So who's in favor of adjourning?
I move adjournment.
Oh, nobody gave it to me. Okay. Good to see you, Aaron.
What was that thing you guys did?
Yeah. A cartoon show.